splash, you want to reserve as much as possible. But if you're going to splash, it's near the sink. And all you do is you go in, I guess I'll move these guys. You go in through the hinge, which is the back part of the oyster. Everybody kind of knows oysters, but I'll go through the basics of it. Oysters are teardrop shaped, hinges at the back, cup on the bottom, flat part is what we call the top. Really it's right left valves, but we'll get scientific later. This is where the oyster generally opens up in the ocean and filter feeds. They're filter feeders. They clean the water. They do not eat carrion. They're not bottom feeders. There's a lot of stigma sometimes to intertidal creatures that live on the bottom. These are filter feeders. They filter out phytoplankton and zooplankton, algae. And if you live in California, these people actually get buckets of algae and put it into a mix and drink it in their smoothie because algae is good for you. It's the microcosm of the backbone of the whole world type of thing. These guys actually eat that. So you've got a protein-packed source of meat with algae in it already. Ain't nothing but good for you in that. So it opens up filter feeds that way, and that's how we're going to open the oyster. You want to keep as much liquor as possible in the restaurant trade. I want to keep the oysters nice, full, and as scar-free as possible. So you cover it up at home, then you take your blade and you insert it right in the hinge at the back, and you wiggle it back and forth like a screwdriver. Okay, don't try to pry it open, don't try to shove it in, you're just kind of wiggling it until it sets. Once it sets there, it's a quarter turn. So a quarter turn pops or breaks the hinge, it opens it up, and now I can go do a little bit more detailed work. I don't want to kind of go in blind if I don't know where I'm going. So I will pry it open a little bit, try to get it open as much as I can. Now you can see where the meat is attached. Is that easier? If the meat's attached right there on the top shell, you want to scrape that off very gently, about 4 scrapes. And you want to look for any grit, any shells that are in there, anything on the edge. Shells grow in layers. The oyster produces nacre, which is a liquid mother of pearl. When it solidifies, becomes the white shell, part of the shell on the inside, and then grows from the inside out. So the oyster will grow in layers. So you get things like this. When you see this oyster here has actually got new shell growth on it, and it's March, which is very nice. So you want to look for new shell growth along the inside of the shell, and loose term, we call it for bones. I'm looking for bones. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's soft, so you'll see it around the lip. As you're eating an oyster, you don't want to necessarily have that come out. So I always tell my boys to look at that. You scrape it off either with your knife tip or your incredibly clean pinky, because the shells and bones will actually stick to the pinky more than it will to the knife tip. But just don't do this afterwards or pick your teeth or anything like that. You wash your hands after. Don't worry about that. We're always good with clean oyster shuckers. She's giggling over here. She's got beer in her hand. Love it. St. Patrick's Day. Yay. Okay. So then you sweep out for any grit, and you're looking underneath here, which is the adductor muscle. It holds the 2 shells together. The shell naturally wants to just stay open. So there's elastic properties in the hinge that if the oyster wasn't inside, the hinge will just be open. So the muscle is an adductor, brings the 2 muscles together. That's that kinesiology to be working again. Adduction brings together, abduction takes away. So it's an adductor muscle, brings it together and keeps it closed. Our good East Coast oysters here learn about winter. When they learn about winter, they can hibernate and then they live in a fridge a very long time. West Coast oysters don't necessarily do that. This is why we can get 3 to 4 weeks out of an oyster in a fridge. You just put it in a fridge or keep it sort of moistish or whatnot, up to 4 weeks. That's why back in the 1800s and earlier, you would ship on a train a barrel of oysters in November to Toronto from Prince Edward Island and put them in a haystack on the farm. You'd have an oyster party at Christmas and they'd still be alive. A few would die on the outside, but they'd have their parties. That's back in the 1800s and earlier. To continue back to the oyster, so that you go to the adductor muscle and you scrape on the bottom shell with your blade, just nice underneath, so it loosens the oyster and makes sure it's loose. You want to make sure that you have no grit, no cuts. That's how you get judged. And then you'll put it on the plate. Now, I'm just using a plain plate here. Most people will use ice, crushed ice, seaweed, something to do. If you don't have all that at home, save your top shell, because this is what I'm going to do here. Put your top shell down. It looks really good, and it's got that dark color of the ocean that shows you the top of what it's going to do. And then it also keeps the oysters from rocking around, because it's a cup bottom and a flat plate. It doesn't work well together. So that's all you do when you're shucking oysters. You just bring this up, crack it in, and when you're doing this as well, the best thing to do is this is with a house party at home. You got your friends coming around. You shuck the oysters. They get you your wine and your beer. They keep you happy, you keep them happy. Then you become the best friend at every party around the way. Everyone will want you over for Christmas time and the whole works. So when we're enjoying the oysters, I'm finding trends now these days. in oyster world is the fact that there's a lot of oyster bars everywhere. I've been asked this a couple of times just recently, everywhere, Scott, seems to be more oyster bars are opening up these days. And it's true, there are oyster bars all over the place. And it's almost getting to a point where even regular restaurants are having oysters on their menu. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing for the oyster. It's not so good if you have a bigger restaurant and you're super specialized in oysters and that's all you do, because it seems to be thinning out. You say, where the people are going? They're just visiting oyster places all over the place. What it is good for is the oyster, the world of shellfish and sustainability in that sense, because people are realizing that they are enjoying a great piece of the ocean in a little restaurant setting and enjoying themselves without having to worry about the fact that they have to go to just a special oyster bar because only they know about it. Everyone's getting to know a bit more about oysters, which I guess is why I'm putting my oyster knife to retail trade. And I had a good couple of people come into my Irish bar when I opened it up, and I bring oysters in there because in Ireland they have oysters as well. And I had two ladies come in and they go, I'll have 24 oysters. Oh, that's nice. Thanks very much. You must know that I bring them in from my restaurant, Starfish Downtown. They go, who are you? Well, I'm Patrick. I kind of own the place, but I also own Starfish. But that's not what it's all about. They go, we never heard of Starfish. I go, so you're just walking into an Irish bar off the street and you're ordering 24 oysters and a beer? They go, yep. I go, well, that's good for the oyster. The oyster's getting very well known again, and it goes in cycles like that. It's been around for 25 million years, like I've said before, and it'll be around for another 25 million after that, I'm sure. I don't think I'll be here. If I was, I'll probably still be shucking oysters. But people are getting well known and well acquainted to it now, and what we're seeing is more people enjoying the diversity of different types of oysters. Not just, we'll have East Coast, West Coast, but we'll have, I want a Maine oyster, I want a Chesapeake oyster, I want a Gulf of Mexico oyster, I want a Prince Edward Island oyster, and they want to know the differences. They want to taste the flavor of them, they want to have that experience of terroir of where the oysters come from, and then they play with the sauces afterwards, and they enjoy that, and that's that type of situation. So, well, this is what you do when you're doing an oyster shucking thing. You tend to keep your eye on the oyster. That's the other thing I always recommend, because if you don't keep your eye on the oyster is going to end up in your, the oyster knife is going to end up in your hand type of thing. And nobody wants that. But if you do, you can go get stitches if you want to. You don't have to use a little crazy glue. That always works too. Good shucker will have crazy glue in your kit. That's the purse right there, just in case. That's what happens. Kumamotos are a little bit different to shuck. Now I'm going to use these tops on this one because they've got this deep cut, and it's a little bit harder to settle down because they'll rock around a lot, like so. So you just put them down and you just wander them around those shells. It'll look kind of nice and all works. Because you always want to have a little taste of this stuff as it